Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this monthly in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Ag Carolina and AgSouth Farm Credit. We've only got one big question to answer, and that is, when is this going to change? What you're looking at here is the wind field today on April the 14th as I'm recording this, and we have just had a dominant Bermuda high that has pushed farther and farther to the west to occupy so much of the southeastern United States. And once again, it is funneling most of the Gulf moisture in through the central U.S., coming into eastern Texas and rolling right up to the Great Lakes, over which we have this constant threat of heavy rains and also flooding, of course, and then severe weather. But because of how large and dominant the Bermuda high is, in fact, it is expanding all the way across the open Atlantic. Because of its dominance, it has pushed repeatedly for the last 45 to 50 days into the southeast, acting as almost a shield, keeping away the moisture, preventing the atmosphere by capping it with warmer air aloft, suppressing moisture in the upper atmosphere, and not allowing precipitation to form. And as a result, we have built into some significant drought. If you're curious what it looks like statistically, from the beginning of March up until the 13th, I have numerous counties and climate reporting districts from Virginia all the way down to the Florida Panhandle, and back all the way, to the west of the Mississippi, even a bit on the other side of it. They're having like a top 5 driest, again, what time period? March 1st to April 13th, that 45-day window, top 5 driest on record. And when you're splitting hairs in the top 5, you just consider it to be the driest. And we're waiting to see if we can break this down, because what that protective Bermuda high has done, again, has opened up this corridor to just exceptional moisture transport, and we're flooding out the Great Lakes. We've kept parts of the plains very, very dry. The east, compared to the west, has been a completely different story. Even though we've been dry in California, they've at least had storm systems come through. And overall, this has been kind of our 2 main epicenters of drought, and most of the country's focused heavily on what's happening in the southeast. So I want to show you what it looks like on the drought monitor. We have 100% coverage across the territories we're concerned with Ag Carolina and AgSouth. And we've now seen this exceptional category grow coming out of the Florida Panhandle into Georgia. We're running up against dates, of course, that are critical for insurance. And given how dry it is and what the forecast looks like, we've got problems. Now, I do understand that drought can happen rapidly in the southeast and it can be undone very, very quickly. But these soil moisture deficits we're seeing, this is the topsoil, the top 4 inches. We're in the lowest 2 percentile, meaning of the 50 years or so that are in this data set, it's the driest in that ranking. Then you could go down a little bit farther, down to 16 inches, and still we're powder. You can even go down to 100 centimeters. So we're down here, 36 inches, and we continue to see this is some of the driest conditions we've experienced in spring. In addition to that, it's been hot, so our evaporative demand has been higher. When you look at the temperature ranks, going back to the beginning of March up until yesterday, so much of the southeast is having a top 5 to top 10 warmest, mid-springs, or early springs, I guess we should say, early to mid-spring. And it's been extremely warm across the whole South and all the way back to the western United States. In fact, the United States in this past March is knocking on the door of record territory as the warmest March in our historical records, which go back to the late 1890s. So the evaporative demand combined with the lack of moisture has put us into a very precarious situation with our crops. The crop counters are off. We've now had to change strategies, and we're looking for something that could possibly change this. What we do not want to see, all right? We don't want to see a collapse of the current pattern to go from drought to flood. And that has happened in the past, and we are very well aware of that. What we need to watch here is for a systematic change, but we're not getting that in the near term. Just have a look at this. These are the high temperatures forecast for this week. Here's Tuesday the 14th. Look at Wednesday and Thursday. We've got 90s as far north as New Jersey. We're going to be well into the 90s throughout North and South Carolina and into Georgia. Then you get into the day on Thursday, still a very hot one. We've had excessive heat issues, put out from the National Weather Service here as well. Just not warnings, but statements saying, hey, you're talking about midsummer heat coming in here in April. Then you get into Friday, another hot one deep into the 90s. But there's a cold front coming. The trouble has been these cold fronts have failed to get all the way over the Appalachian Mountains. And here's Sunday's temperatures. We're still in the 80s, go over the mountains are in the 60s. So to be able to get that to come through and maintain its strength to wipe out this area and bring in some moisture is difficult. Like, oh, well, did it do it on Monday? Yes, there's a front coming through. But is it going to be delivering much precipitation? That's going to be the question. Okay, thinking all of that through, let me take you here really quickly. I thought I had this up, but let's just do this. Let's just go to, no, we'll just do this. The Bermuda high, I apologize for that. Here it is right now, today. And as I play this forward, we continue to see through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday during this heat wave. It's just size and extent. Then we watch going into the weekend as there comes the system with the frontal boundary right in through there on Friday. That comes through where I live. And it swipes a front through us on Sunday. See it? But the trajectory of the low, it went from here to there. See it curling up? That's our issue. The Bermuda high is forcing this to go farther to the north. And if it could come maybe toward Maine, this front would be stronger and give us a better chance at lifting what moisture there is to make precipitation. But as it stands after that goes through, by next Tuesday, we've built back in high pressure again. It's right there already. And now we're out there, a full week or more in the forecast, and the high pressure just is maintained. Now, there's a bit of a shift taking place late in the month. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm seeing it in the models. I'm not overly confident, but I'm going to be hunting for this, all right? See this low pressure cell that's sitting out here in the open Atlantic? That has squashed part of the Bermuda high and split it. There's a piece there, and there's a piece over here. And if that can be maintained, then we could change the flow toward the end of the month and have better opportunities to build high pressure to our west and not over us. But it's at the very, very end of the month that I'm talking about here. So what do we have over the next week? I can play this for you very quickly. That's what the European model, the Weather Prediction Center, this is kind of NOAA's best precipitation product, is suggesting. And what we've got here is dominant Bermuda high keeping us drier, even though there's a front coming through Sunday, okay? But all the focus is here. Heaviest rains, severe weather, multi-day severe weather threat. In fact, we're watching very carefully the upper Midwest later today. But then we're drier again in the plains. And we're just out there looking for something that could break this. And I go out 10 days and I still see that the probability of our region staying below a half inch through the next 10 days is 80 to 100%. So there is no drought breaking as we work our way from today on the 13th and 14th all the way out to the 23rd and 24th. We are just too much stuck under that high pressure cell. As I play it out farther, you say, it's starting to fade a little bit, but to see a full 15-day forecast, and there's still a 30 to 40% chance that we do not get a half inch is what's troublesome. But there is something out there shifting around, and I want to show it to you. Now, this red you see here, this is the influence of the heat dome that is a part of the Bermuda high. And you're going to watch the blues, which are the troughs, come through and then rip right off. Look at this one, up into Canada. That's the front that gets pulled through on Monday. But notice, I'd need this upper level trough to be farther to the south for this to be able to lift the air in a meaningful way and return moisture ahead of it. And instead, right away, another ridge builds in. But after the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, some of the models are hinting at more troughing here and lower pressure there, which we just saw. And that is at least something different in the pattern. And that is why some of the forecast models are out there into week 2. Well, I often notice that the CPC it paints too much green. Understand? But the European model is trying to sneak in some moisture into this area. The artificial intelligence is not buying it. Got us dry. But the GFS is also bringing in moisture here and even a little farther to the north. And we're starting to see this region no longer showing up on this side of my color bar, which is the very dry side, and beginning to show more normal chances of getting precipitation. Now, there is no guarantee in this. And we're going to watch this constantly in the forecast models. But we do see things shifting around. Now, what about those temperatures? Well, here's today's highs, Tuesday, compared to average. Here's Wednesday, Thursday. We know the heat wave that's coming through this week. We talked about it. We're 20 to 25 degrees above average. All right, what about when that front gets here? Well, that's Friday. Saturday, still hot. Sunday, the front approaches and clears by Monday. That knocks us back down to, 2 to 5 degrees cooler than average. But you saw the ridge comes back in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There it is next week. But look at the end of this. We're starting to get more normal signals in the temperature pattern. And we're attempting to see what this might mean once you get out there toward the very end of the month. Now, I'm going to approach this from a couple different perspectives. The first way we're going to look at it is with the models. This is the high pressure. This isn't temperature, this is pressure. That is the high pressure cell now. And over the next week, where are our lows going? Here to there. See it? Now, if I go from this week to next week, look, lower pressure is building in, and that high pressure cell moved all the way up here. So that is a breakdown as we get farther into next week. What about getting out there into week 3? This would be the last couple of days of April and the beginning of May. And that is a huge difference. Major shift in the pressure pattern across the Atlantic Ocean. And I can attribute this to whatever acronym you want. The North Atlantic Oscillation. It doesn't matter. But the change in pressure is what's key. And that is dropping pressure here, giving us better chances at seeing some moisture return. So let's go see what this model says in terms of precipitation during that time frame. Now, I'm going to zoom into the United States, and let's go back. This is this week, okay? This is next week. There it is. Remember how the models are trying to bring in some moisture to push it here next week. What about week 3? See this? As that pressure drops, we're starting to see increased opportunities. This doesn't break drop, but increase opportunities for precipitation. I'm going to tell you a rule of thumb that I have. Whenever I start to see the models bring in precipitation, I take whatever values they're going to give me and I cut them in half. Because to overcome the initial drought takes a lot of effort. But the chances of seeing moisture as we get out there to the beginning of May start to show up. And as we go further into May, it doesn't really appear that we're going back over to these very dry colors. That's one model. We've got another one. Here's the GFS. This is this week. And that's getting out to next week. Again, next week we're seeing this moisture move. What about week 3? Look. Did you see that? The end of April, beginning of May? We're seeing this chance for some moisture to come back in. I'm trying to kind of curb my enthusiasm over this because I do not want to be over-promising something here. But it has at least been a trend that's been worth watching. All right, now that just gets us out there to that specific time frame. I do want to tell you that I think the late April, early May temperatures could cool off as well. Now, I'm not talking about cold, but getting cool again. And since we're thinking about this, I do want to let you know, I don't think it's going to matter for you now, but on the AgWeather website, which we've completely redesigned, I hope you're taking advantage of this, ag-wx.com. If you get here and you sign up for our Pro subscription, over here under Pro Tools, I did build a new Freeze Pro. And I have it set up for my house, but let's go, let's just go to Charleston, South Carolina. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run this freeze assessment. It's running right now on Charleston. Maybe I got to click that again. And what this is going to do is this is going to go pull all of these historical data for Charleston, and it's going to be able to give us a forecast of what that freezes look like. Sorry, it had to hit all those databases. I think I should put a little spinny wheel on this to let you know that it's loading. But what we have here is the temperatures from 7 different models, and there's your freeze line. Now, the probability of you having a frost is 0. I'm not talking about that. But we do see, look at this, temperatures cool off. That would be this weekend. I'll fix that color bar, and then warming back up again. Now, as we get, back into that time period where we get worried about frosts, we'll be able to watch the ensemble models and see what they say. And then you'll even be able to put it into historical context, which, by the way, in Charleston, historically, our last frost date was way back here in February, and we're way past that. Okay, but your next frost date coming in November, December, you can see historically, and even put out a little right up at the bottom. So please take advantage of this tool that I've got on the Pro Tools here. Okay, now with that out of the way, can I tell you where I think this might be going longer term? And you're going, Eric, you left your screen on something somewhere else. No, we are in the Pacific Ocean for a reason. The most important factor going into the summer is this. You're going, okay, there's a little wind coming out of the west along the equator. Yeah. But normally the winds here go in this direction. And what you are seeing is the latest edition of what has been multiple westerly wind bursts that have come out of the Indian Ocean across Indonesia, and they're moving into the Pacific. Now, this has a name. We call this El Niño. I know most people are like, well, El Niño has to do with water. No. El Niño, first, is a trade wind shift. It is second, a shift in ocean temperatures. The ocean temperatures come second. And this big westerly wind burst just spun up a massive typhoon. Biggest of the 2026 so far in 2026. Most powerful typhoon right there. Now it's going to stay out to open ocean. I don't care about that. But this is what's fading. And this La Nina is done, and El Nino's coming in. So all that warm water that's been here is sloshing its way back as the trade winds reverse. And we have to question what this is going to mean, given the ocean temperature distribution in the Pacific and in the Atlantic. So here we go. Right now, the newest forecast for El Nino is that some of these forecast models are taking this up where we could possibly be above 2.5 degrees, which we would consider a super Nino. That's one of the more powerful ones. Just for historical context, the current projections, if you look at all of the big El Nino spikes in this, the current projections for this El Nino by September are to have it up here as strong, if not stronger, than the current kind of reigning king, which would be 1982. Now, what do we do with this? Well, if I took all of these years where rapidly building El Nino conditions showed up, and maybe I'm going to include 2023, this is what happened in the month of May. Now, this is tricky for us because we tended to see parts of North Carolina to Virginia going drier. We did open up planting windows here in May, but we were drier, and we can't handle any more drought. To the south of this, we had wetter signals when you combine all these years. Same thing for the whole of the Gulf Coast and then up here through the plains. Now, I'm going to show you something. This is the data from NOAA. I'm going to show you now a global map. And I want you to see that that same signal exists. So near normal precipitation here, drier toward the mid-Atlantic, and wet up the plains. There's some other international issues going on here as well, as you can see. And we're going to be talking about major drought developing in Indonesia, a weak Indian monsoon, problems in the North China Plain, Manchurian Plain. But this is what we think the May pattern could look like. And again, it is all because we're watching these ocean temperatures change in response to the trade wind shift. And by September, look at the sheer size of this El Nino event. Now, this needs to be studied more. This possible warm, cold, warm. It's a part of several different circulations, including the Arctic Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation, the Atlantic Meridional Mode. These are all just nerdy terms that we use to understand warm, cold, warm, and what the pressure patterns do. But right now, what I want to check in on is how are the models responding to this? So here we go. I've got 4 models out for you right now. European model in the upper left is the most trustworthy. And this is May through July, and it is not overly dry here, but a little drier farther to our north. The NMME is wetter and then drier into this area. So we kind of see, is wetter and then drier into that area. The UK Met Office, this is out of the United Kingdom, has near normal precipitation for us. In fact, it's a very wet model overall. And this is the latest. This will be updated in about a week from now. But this is the latest on May, June, July from the CPC. They're actually very wet for us. Now, I got to throw this one out as an outlier, just for right now. But there's some consistency here that would suggest after we get into May, we no longer see the drought, I guess, getting worse and worse and worse. There is something coming through that's going to shift that Bermuda high around. And I think it's going to be critical to see how the moisture plays out as a result. That's just one. Let's go out there and look a little farther. Excuse me. Let's look at temperatures. Forgive me there. There is risk of us having some above average temperatures, though, into early summer. It's in the European model. It's in the NOAA predictions, although the greatest heat is expected to be back in the Great Basin in the west in both models. Let's go out there beyond that. This is the July to September forecast. And again, I do see there being risk of being drier here. That's pretty consistent among longer-term models. It's pretty consistent among the historical analogs. We have to pay attention to that. But overall, I'm not seeing major signals of mid-summer drought for us. Now, these models I showed it to you last video, they did pick up on the risk of drought from winter into spring. They saw that signal. I'm just telling you now they don't. Now, they all have a different look. I mean, my goodness, what is the Climate Prediction Center doing here that the European is not, nor is the UK Met, and really not even the NMME? We're going to wait for this update. I think it'll come out about the 17th of the month. They're going to update this. But that's the current look. And temperature-wise, let's just have a look at summer here. It's going to be a hot one. Okay? And cooler maybe Great Lakes, but we're warmer than average. We got one last thing to talk about. I'm just going to take it to you live here. Let's go to Colorado State, or let's type it in this way, CSU hurricane forecast. They just released this the other day. Their predictions for hurricanes, look at this. I'm going to draw a line and make it easier. These are the average numbers for like named storms, number of hurricane days, major hurricanes, accumulated cyclone energy. And in every case, the numbers for the prediction of this season are lower. And the reason for that, maybe we can go back to this and see it. Let's flip this over, not from monthly temperatures or ocean temperatures, but about seasonal anomalies. There we go. The reason for that is because as this El Nino builds, it tends to increase the wind shear coming out of the Pacific and across the Atlantic here. And increased wind shear tends to slow this area down for the development of sustained low pressure. And as a result, the main development region, which is here, into the Caribbean and parts of the Gulf tend to be suppressed. Now, we can't sit on this because we tend to see during El Nino years a lot of homegrown tropical systems, those ones that just form right off the coast, not predictable months in advance, but right off the coast and move toward us. So unlike a year ago where we had no tropical systems, why? Bermuda High, remember this? I showed it to you last time. The Bermuda High, which normally sits here, went way over there in August and kept every tropical system away. This year, it could be a wind shear issue, but don't forget, it only takes one. It takes one system, one hurricane to come through. So please continue to stay protected with that. And that's all I got for you today. I just wanted you to see this bigger picture outlook on what we're watching, when I think we could start to see a pattern shift. Unfortunately, just to recap this, we got heat in the near term, very dry conditions in the near term. We're watching late April for stuff to shift around. And after that, we'll see how El Nino plus other factors dominate our forecast. I hope that when I talk to you on the second Tuesday of next month, I've got considerably different news. We'll talk then. Thanks.